The three suns of Ilios were setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. In the tall crystal tower that housed the Moran High Council, the mood was anything but beautiful. June stood before the seven elders, his blue skin pale with exhaustion. For 3 days straight, he had worked without rest analyzing the latest reports from their outer colonies. "The numbers don't lie," he said, his voice steady despite his fear. "The Vex have destroyed 4 more colony worlds. That makes 17 in total. At this rate, they will reach Ilios in less than 30 days. Elder Sue, the oldest of the council members, closed her large almond-shaped eyes. The small lights that dotted her skin dimmed in sorrow. "So many lives lost," she whispered. "And for what? Resources they could mine from empty moons?" "The Vex don't just want resources," said June. "They want to be the only advanced life in the galaxy. They see all other thinking beings as threats." The Moran people had lived in peace for over 10,000 years. They had forgotten what it meant to fight. Their bodies, tall and slender with delicate 4-fingered hands, were built for creating art and technology, not war. Even their ships, though faster than light, carried no weapons. "What options do we have left?" asked Elder Tay, his voice cracking with age and worry. June took a deep breath. What he was about to suggest went against everything the Moran believed in. It might even be impossible. But they had run out of choices. "There is one thing we haven't tried," he said. "The ancient records speak of another world, a planet called Earth." The council chamber grew quiet. Everyone knew of Earth, but only as a story told to children. "Earth is just a legend," said Elder Min, the youngest of the council. "A fairy tale about violent beings who somehow achieved space travel." "No," said Hannah, stepping forward from the shadows. As June's research partner and Ilios's top historian, her words carried weight. "Earth is real. Our ancestors visited it over 2,000 years ago, but left it alone because its people were too aggressive, too unpredictable." Hannah activated her data tablet, projecting images into the air. Creatures that looked somewhat like Moran, but with broader shoulders, no light patterns on their skin, and more muscular bodies. "Humans," she continued, "evolved on a world with higher gravity than ours. Their planet had thousands of predators, forcing them to become predators themselves. They feel emotions more strongly than we do, especially something they call anger. A state of protective rage we Moran can barely understand." "And you want to bring these dangerous beings here?" Elder Sue asked, horrified. "Even if Earth exists, even if we could reach them across such vast distance, why would we want to?" June stepped closer to the projected images. "Because the texts also say humans protect those they consider friends with incredible fierceness. They have a concept called fighting spirit that lets them keep going when all logic says they should stop. Exactly what we need against the Vex," Hannah added softly. The debate lasted until morning. Many objected. Some cried. In the end, with the news that another colony had fallen overnight, the council made their choice. "Do it," Elder Sue said, her voice heavy with the weight of her decision. "Find us an Earth champion." 3 days later, June and Hannah stood in the quantum laboratory beneath the central city. Around them, Ilios's most advanced technology hummed with power. The room was filled with crystal tubes and flowing liquid metal circuits. "The beacon is ready," said Myran, the head engineer. "But I must warn you again, this has never been tried. We're sending a quantum signal through space and time. If it works, it will scan Earth for a suitable human and bring them here." "What makes a human suitable?" asked Hannah, adjusting the final settings. June checked his calculations one last time. "According to our research, we need someone young enough to adapt quickly but old enough to help us. Someone with strong emotions, especially courage and protective instincts. Someone who knows what it means to fight for others." Hannah looked troubled. "Are we doing the right thing? Pulling someone from their home without permission?" "We'll send them back if they wish," June promised. "But the ancient records say humans crave adventure and purpose. We're offering both." A loud boom shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. "They're here," Moran whispered, fear making his skin lights flicker. The Vex fleet has entered our solar system. June's hands moved quickly over the control panel. We're out of time. Activating the beacon now. The machine roared to life. In the center of the room, a perfect sphere of energy formed, growing until it was the size of a Moran adult. Inside, stars and galaxies swirled in miniature. Target locked, said the computer in its calm voice. Earth located. Scanning for suitable match. Hana grabbed June's arm. It's working. For several tense minutes, the sphere pulsed and changed colors as it scanned millions of humans. Then suddenly it flashed bright white. Match found, announced the computer. Human selected. Who? June asked, stepping closer. Show us. The sphere shifted, revealing the image of a young human with dark hair. The human was sitting on a grassy hill, eyes closed, with strange devices covering its ears. Its face showed strong emotion. Pain, frustration, longing. This one feels deeply, said the computer. Strong emotional capacity, physical condition, within optimal parameters. Location, isolated enough for discrete extraction. Hana studied the image. It's just a child. Not a child, June corrected, reading the data. An adolescent male, 17 Earth years, nearly an adult by their standards. Another explosion, closer this time, shook the lab. Warning lights flashed. Vex ships have entered the atmosphere, the security system announced. Estimate 14 minutes until they reach the city. June looked at Hana, then at the image of the human youth, still lost in whatever sounds were coming through those ear devices. We have no choice, he said. Initiate transfer. Hana closed her eyes. May the stars forgive us for what we do. The quantum sphere pulsed once, twice, 3 times, and exploded in a flash of light so bright that everyone had to shield their eyes. When they could see again, lying on the floor where the sphere had been, was the human boy. He was still wearing the ear devices, and some kind of music was faintly audible from them. His eyes were closed. Did it work? Moran whispered. Is he alive? As if in answer, the boy's eyes snapped open. He looked around wildly, then scrambled to his feet with a speed that made the Moran gasp. What the? He started to say, then stopped, staring at the blue-skinned aliens surrounding him. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the human did something unexpected. Instead of showing fear, his face changed to show what the Moran would later learn was anger. He pulled the devices from his ears and held them in his fist. Who are you? He demanded. Where am I? Before anyone could answer, the building shook again, harder this time. The lights flickered. They're here, June said simply. He stepped toward the human and bowed slightly. My name is June. These are my people, the Moran. We brought you here because we need your help. Our world is dying. The human looked at June, then at the others, confusion clear on his expressive face. My name is Day, he said finally, and I think you've got the wrong guy. The first Vex bombs hit the city above them, and the real test began. 5 hours before Day appeared on an alien world, he was having the worst day of his life on Earth. The morning had started badly when Day woke up to his parents fighting downstairs. Again. Their voices carried through the thin walls of their small apartment in Seoul. I can hear you, you know, he muttered as he pulled on his school uniform. School wasn't any better. His math teacher handed back their tests, placing Day's paper face down on his desk. See me after class, she said quietly. Day didn't need to look at the red mark on his paper. He had failed. Again. His parents would be so disappointed. His father wanted him to be a doctor or engineer, but numbers just didn't make sense today, the way music did. At lunch, he sat alone as usual. Across the cafeteria, he could see Sun, the girl he had liked since middle school. She was laughing with her friends, completely unaware that Day existed. He had never found the courage to speak to her. After school, Day didn't go home. He couldn't face his parents, not with another failed test. Instead, he took the bus to the edge of the city and hiked up to his favorite spot on a small hill overlooking Seoul. The place was empty, as it usually was on weekdays. This was where he came to escape. Sitting on the grass, Day pulled out his headphones and connected them to his phone. These headphones were his most precious possession, saved up for over 6 months of weekend work at his uncle's store. They weren't the most expensive brand, but they blocked out the world and made the music feel like it was playing inside his head. As the sun began to set, Day turned the volume up until the heavy beats drowned out his thoughts. With his eyes closed, he let his anger flow through him. Anger at his parents for fighting, anger at himself for failing, anger at the world for not making sense. He never noticed the slight shimmer in the air around him, never felt the scan that measured his neural patterns and emotional state, never knew that 42 light-years away a desperate civilization had just selected him as their champion. One moment Day was sitting on his hill in Korea. The next, there was a flash of light, a strange pulling sensation, and then he was lying on a cold floor surrounded by tall blue aliens. The laboratory shook again as another bomb hit the city above. Alarms blared. "What do you mean you've got the wrong guy?" Hannah asked, studying the human boy in front of them. Day looked around wildly, trying to make sense of where he was. These creatures were like nothing he had ever seen, tall and slender with blue skin that glowed with tiny lights. The room was filled with strange crystal technology unlike anything on Earth. "I mean," Day said, his voice rising, "that I'm nobody. I'm just a high school student who can't even pass math. If you needed a hero, you should have grabbed someone else." June stepped forward. "The quantum beacon selected you specifically. It scanned millions of humans and determined you had the qualities we need." "What qualities?" Day laughed bitterly. "Being a disappointment?" Before June could answer, part of the ceiling collapsed. A Moran technician was trapped under the debris, crying out in pain. Without thinking, Day ran to the fallen alien. The debris was heavy, but Earth's gravity was stronger than Helios's. Day didn't know this. He only knew that he needed to help. With a grunt of effort, he lifted the metal beam enough for Hannah to pull her colleague free. "How did you do that?" Hannah asked, eyes wide. "That beam weighs more than a Moran adult." Day shrugged. It wasn't that heavy. June's lights flickered in what Day would later learn was excitement. "You see? This is why we need you. Humans are physically stronger than us due to Earth's higher gravity. And you acted to help without hesitation. Another human trait our people have lost." The building shook again. This time the lights went out completely before emergency systems kicked in. "We need to move," said Moran, the engineer. "The Vex will target all major buildings first." "The Vex?" Day asked, following the group toward a doorway. "Who are they?" As they hurried through crystal corridors, June explained. "The Vex are a species that believes they are the only ones who deserve advanced technology. They destroy any civilization that reaches a certain level. They've already wiped out 17 of our colony worlds. Now they're here for our home world." They entered a transport tube that shot them upward at high speed. When the doors opened, Day gasped. They were in a tall tower overlooking a city that looked like it was made of crystal and light. Or at least it had been. Now parts of it were burning, and strange ships with sharp, angular designs were firing weapons at buildings. "It's beautiful," Day said, then corrected himself. "It was beautiful." "This is Helios," Hannah said, her voice sad. "Our homeworld for 10,000 years. In less than a day, it will be gone unless something changes." An explosion nearby sent them all ducking for cover. Through a broken window, Day could see people running in the streets below. The Moran moved awkwardly, as if they had never learned to run properly. Many were being captured by robots that looked like metal spiders. "Why don't you fight back?" Day asked. The aliens exchanged looks. "We don't know how," June admitted. "Our people haven't experienced war in thousands of years. We've forgotten violence." Day stared at them in disbelief. "You don't know how to fight, so you kidnapped me? I'm not a soldier." "No," said Hannah gently. "But you're human. Your species understands conflict in ways we never will. The ancient records say humans are born knowing how to fight." Day was about to argue when the door at the end of the hall burst open. A tall figure in dark metal armor stepped through. Not Moran, but something else. Its body was bulky with too many limbs at odd angles. Its face was hidden behind a smooth mask with glowing red sensors. "Vex!" Miran shouted. The alien soldier raised a weapon. The Miran froze in terror, their bodies completely still. None of them knew what to do. But Day did. Years of playing video games and watching action movies took over. He grabbed Hana and June and pulled them behind a fallen column. "Get down," he shouted to the others. The Vex fired its weapon. A beam of energy hit the spot where they had been standing seconds before, melting the floor. "We need a weapon," Day said, looking around desperately. "We don't have weapons," June replied, his lights dim with fear. Day spotted a piece of metal that had broken off from the ceiling. He picked it up, testing its weight. "Then we'll have to make one." The Vex was advancing slowly, scanning the room. It seemed confused by the idea that its targets might hide instead of standing still to be shot. Day's heart was pounding. He was terrified but also strangely focused. This was nothing like his problems on Earth. This was simple. Survive or die. "When I move, run for the exit," he told the Miran. "Don't stop. Don't look back." "What are you going to do?" Hana asked, her large eyes wide with worry. Day took a deep breath. He put his headphones on and selected the loudest, angriest song on his playlist. "Something stupid," he answered, and turned the volume up to maximum. With the music blasting in his ears, drowning out his fear, Day stood up and shouted at the Vex soldier. "Hey, ugly, over here!" The Vex turned toward him, its sensors focusing on this strange creature that did not behave like a Miran. Day ran straight at the alien, screaming with all the fury of a teenager who had nothing left to lose. In that moment, he wasn't thinking about failed tests or disappointed parents or unrequited crushes. He was just angry. And for once in his life, that anger had a purpose. The Vex fired, but Day was moving erratically, making himself hard to hit. Before the alien could adjust its aim, Day was upon it, swinging his makeshift metal club with all his strength. The Vex staggered back, clearly surprised. It had never encountered a species that would charge directly at a superior force. It would be the first of many surprises Earth's unlikely champion had in store for the invaders of Helios. The metal club hit the Vex soldier with a loud clang. The impact sent vibrations up Day's arms, but he didn't stop. He swung again and again, the music in his headphones driving his movements. The Vex stumbled backward. It had never faced a direct, physical attack before. Most species surrendered when they saw Vex weapons. This small pink creature was not following the expected pattern. June and Hana watched in amazement as Day forced the much larger Vex to retreat. The human moved in ways they had never seen. Unpredictable, fast, and with an intensity that made their skin lights flicker. "Run!" Day shouted at them between swings. "Get out now!" This time the Miran listened. They hurried toward the exit while Day kept the Vex distracted. But just as they reached the door, 2 more Vex soldiers appeared, blocking their escape. Day saw his new friends trapped. The music in his ears reached a powerful crescendo, and something inside him snapped. A feeling rose in his chest, hot and fierce, stronger than any anger he had felt on Earth. This wasn't just teenage frustration. This was fury with purpose. He let out a yell that made even the Vex pause. Then he charged at the nearest one, ducking under its weapon and ramming his shoulder into its midsection. The Vex toppled over, crashing into its companion. "This way." Day grabbed Hana's hand and pulled her past the fallen soldiers. June and the others followed. They ran down a crystal hallway as alarms blared around them. Through windows they could see the beautiful city of the Miran burning. Ships with sharp angles circled overhead, firing weapons that turned buildings to dust. "Where are we going?" Day asked as they ran. "Underground," June replied. "The deep labs are protected." They reached a transport tube, but it wasn't working. The power was out. "Now what?" Day asked. June looked lost. "I don't know. We never planned for this." Day looked around and spotted a maintenance door beside the transport tube. "There must be stairs, right?" The door led to a narrow stairwell. The group hurried down, flight after flight going deeper into the planet. After what felt like hundreds of steps, they emerged into a large circular room filled with equipment Day didn't recognize. The emergency bunker, Hannah explained. This facility was built thousands of years ago during the last time our people faced conflict. Other Myran were already there, scientists, engineers, and a few elders. They turned to stare at Day, their eyes wide with curiosity and fear. Is this the human? Asked an elderly Myran with dim skin lights. Yes, Elder Sue, June replied. His name is Day. The elder approached Day carefully. You fought the Vex soldiers, physically? Day nodded, still breathing hard from the run. It wasn't much of a fight, I just hit them and ran. But you hit them, Elder Sue said, as if this was an amazing concept. No Moran would even think to do that. Day took off his headphones and let them rest around his neck. The music was still playing faintly. Why not? They're trying to kill you. The Moran looked at each other. Our species evolved without large predators, June explained. We never developed the fight response that humans have. When faced with danger, we freeze or run. The idea of attacking even to defend ourselves is foreign to us. Day couldn't believe what he was hearing. So you just let them destroy your worlds? We tried diplomacy, said Elder Sue. We offered the Vex resources, technology, anything they wanted. They took it all and kept attacking. Of course they did, Day said. You showed them you were weak. His words made the Myran flinch. But Day wasn't trying to be cruel, just honest, Leo. Vex are like bullies, he continued. On Earth, bullies target kids who won't fight back. And how do you stop these bullies? Hannah asked. Day thought of the times he had been pushed around at school. He had always walked away, thinking it was the smart thing to do. Now he wondered if that had been a mistake. You stand up to them, he said. You show them you're not an easy target. Elder Sue turned to a large screen showing a map of the city. Red dots showed Vex troops moving through the streets. There are thousands of them, she said. And only one of you. Day looked at the map. The situation did seem hopeless. But then an idea struck him. You said you have advanced technology, right? Stuff the Vex want? June nodded. Our quantum technology is beyond anything they have. That's why they want to destroy us instead of letting us keep developing it. Then let's use it against them, Day said. You might not know how to fight, but I bet you know how your tech works better than they do. For the first time, he saw something like hope in the alien's eyes. What do you have in mind? Asked Hannah. Day pointed to his headphones. On Earth, I use music to block out distractions. Could we make something that would block the Vex communications? Confuse them? The idea sparked excitement among the Myran scientists. They began talking rapidly, their skin lights brightening. It might be possible, June said. The Vex use quantum signals to coordinate their forces. If we could disrupt those signals, we need to examine the Vex technology first, said another scientist, to understand their communication systems. How do we do that? Day asked. Elder Sue pointed to a spot on the map. There is a small Vex scout ship that crashed on the edge of the city. If we could reach it. I'll go, Day said immediately. The room went quiet. You can't go alone, Hannah protested. I'll go with him, said June, stepping forward. Hannah shook her head. Then I'm coming too. Within minutes, a small team was formed. Day, June, Hannah, and 2 Myran engineers who knew enough about Vex technology to identify the important parts. As they prepared to leave, Elder Sue approached Day. Why are you helping us? She asked quietly. We took you from your home without permission. We put you in danger. Day thought about his life on Earth. The failed tests, the fighting parents, the loneliness. On Earth I was nobody, he said. Here, maybe I can be somebody who matters. Hannah touched his arm gently. You already matter, Day. Her touch was warm, and her large eyes looked at him with something he had never seen directed at him before. Respect. It made his heart beat, faster in a way that had nothing to do with fear or anger. The group gathered the supplies they needed. June gave Day a small device that translated their languages. Stay close to me, Day told the Myran as they prepared to return to the surface. Do exactly what I say when I say it. We will, promised June. Day put his headphones back on and scrolled through his playlist, looking for the right song. He needed something with a strong beat, something to keep his courage up. He found it, a track with pounding drums and defiant lyrics. As the music filled his ears, he felt that strange new anger rising again. Not the useless rage he felt on Earth, but something focused and powerful. Ready? He asked the others. The Miran nodded, their skin lights pulsing with nervous energy. Then let's go show these Vex bullies they picked the wrong planet. As they began their dangerous journey to the surface, Day realized something. For the first time in his life, he wasn't running away from his problems. He was running toward something that mattered, and it felt good. Getting to the surface was easier than Day expected. The Vex were busy with larger targets and hadn't bothered to secure the maintenance tunnels. The hard part came when they reached the exit. Day peered through a small gap in the door. The beautiful city he had glimpsed earlier was now a battlefield. Tall crystal buildings lay in ruins. Vex ships patrolled the skies. Robot soldiers marched through the streets, rounding up Miran civilians. "We need to be careful," Day whispered to the others. "Stay low and move quietly." June nodded. "The crashed ship is 2 kilometers that way." He pointed toward a thin column of smoke rising in the distance. Day adjusted his headphones. He kept the volume low so he could hear danger, but the music still gave him courage. "Follow me," he said. "Move when I move. Stop when I stop." The small group slipped out of the tunnel and into the shadows of a fallen building. Day led them through the ruins, teaching the Miran how to stay hidden. It felt strange to be the leader. On Earth, no one ever followed Day anywhere. They were halfway to the crash site when a Vex patrol appeared ahead. 5 robot soldiers were scanning the area with red beams of light. "Down," Day hissed, pulling Hana behind a wall. The others followed quickly, but one of the engineers, Tay, wasn't fast enough. A red beam passed over him, and an alarm sounded. The Vex turned as one and raised their weapons. "Run!" Day shouted, abandoning stealth. The Miran froze in terror. Even after everything, their instinct to stop moving when threatened was too strong. Day grabbed the nearest Miran, June, and shoved him forward. "Run now!" The motion broke June's freeze, and he started moving. The others followed, but the Vex were already firing. Energy beams hit the ground around them, turning stone to slag. Day looked around desperately for a weapon or shelter. He spotted a piece of reflective metal, part of a fallen wall. An idea flashed in his mind. "Keep going," he shouted to the others. "I'll catch up." Day grabbed the metal sheet and turned to face the approaching Vex. He angled the reflective surface carefully. Remembering a science experiment from school, the nearest Vex fired. Day tilted the metal at the last second. The energy beam hit the reflective surface and bounced back, striking the Vex that fired it. The robot exploded in a shower of sparks. The other Vex stopped, their sensors scanning this new development. They had never encountered this tactic before. Day didn't wait for them to figure it out. He dropped the metal and ran after his friends, catching up just as they reached a large crater. In the center sat the crashed Vex scout ship. "That was amazing," Hana said, her eyes wide. "How did you know to do that?" Day shrugged. "Basic physics. Mirrors reflect light. I guessed their weapons might work the same way." "You guessed?" June looked shocked. "Sometimes you have to take chances," Day said. "Now, let's check out this ship before more Vex arrive." The scout ship was small, about the size of a bus. Its dark metal hull was cracked open, revealing complicated machinery inside. The Miran engineers approached cautiously. They began examining the technology, talking excitedly to each other. "Can you understand any of it?" Doi asked. "Yes," said Tay, the engineer. "The Vex technology is advanced but not mysterious. This appears to be their communication system." He pointed to a cluster of crystal tubes filled with swirling energy. "It uses quantum particles to send messages across space instantly," June explained. "Similar to our technology, but more focused on command and control. Can we disrupt it?" Day asked. The engineers looked at each other. "Possibly," said Tay. "If we can identify the frequency they use." Suddenly, Hana gasped. Look at this. She had found a display showing a map of the Moran solar system. Red dots marked Vex ships in orbit around Helios. But one large red triangle was approaching from the edge of the system. What is that? Day asked. The Vex mothership, June said, his voice hollow. It's where their leaders stay until a planet is secure. If it reaches Helios, game over. Day finished for him. The music in his headphones changed to a slower, sadder song. Day felt his courage wavering. How could they possibly win against such overwhelming force? Then he noticed something. The Vex ships moved in perfect formation, maintaining exact distances from each other. They never broke pattern. They're like robots, he said. Even their ships. They are partly mechanical, June confirmed. The Vex believe perfect order is the ideal state of the universe. That gave Day an idea. So they hate chaos? They fear it, Hannah said. Unpredictability is their greatest weakness. Day smiled slowly. Then let's give them chaos. He turned to the engineers. Can you use this ship to send a signal to the others? Yes, Tay replied. But what signal? Day unplugged his headphones, letting the music play out loud. The strong beat filled the crashed ship. This, he said. Human music. The Miran looked confused. Music? June asked. How will that help? Vex communication is ordered and logical, right? Our music is full of emotion and unpredictable patterns. If we can transmit it on their frequency, it might confuse their systems. The engineers' skin lights brightened with understanding. It could work, Tay said. Their quantum communication system might interpret the irregular patterns as corrupted commands. But we would need a powerful transmitter, the other engineer added. This damaged ship can't reach the entire fleet. June thought for a moment. The central communications tower. If it's still standing, we could use it to boost the signal. Day looked at his phone. I've got hundreds of songs here. Different styles, different emotions. The more chaotic, the better, Hannah suggested. They quickly formed a plan. The engineers would extract the key components from the Vex ship that would let them access the enemy's communication frequency. Then they would make their way to the central tower and connect Day's music to the Moran planetary communication system. As they gathered what they needed, Hannah approached Day. Your world must be very different from ours, she said. To produce beings who think of using music as a weapon. Day smiled. On Earth, music isn't a weapon. It's how we express emotions. It helps us feel less alone. He offered her one earphone. Want to listen? Hesitantly, Hannah put the small device to her ear. Her eyes widened as the music played. Emotions crossed her face. Surprise, wonder, and something like joy. I can feel it, she said in amazement. The sound creates feelings. That's why the Vex won't understand it, Day explained. You can't logic your way through music. You have to feel it. June interrupted them. We're ready. The group left the crashed ship, carrying the salvaged Vex technology. The central tower was visible in the distance, still standing despite the destruction around it. It's going to be heavily guarded, Day warned as they moved through the ruins. We don't need to fight them all, June said. Just reach the transmission room at the top. Day nodded, his determination growing. The music in his headphones changed to something fast and energetic, matching his mood. Then let's move, he said. It's time to show the Vex what happens when they mess with Earth's music. As they made their way toward the tower, Day felt different than he had on that hill back in Korea. There, he had been angry at his own problems. Here his fury had purpose, here he mattered. And for the first time in his life he was grateful for his anger. The central communications tower stood like a needle of hope amid the ruins of the Moran city. Its crystal spire reached high into the sky, glowing faintly despite the destruction around it. But between Day's group and the tower stood dozens of Vex soldiers. We need a distraction, Day said as they hid behind a fallen statue. June studied the Vex patrol patterns. They move in perfect formation. Every 5 minutes they change positions exactly. Day smiled. Perfect. Predictable means vulnerable. He turned to Tay, one of the engineers. Can you use that piece of Vex tech to send a small signal? Just enough to draw some of them away? Tay nodded and began working with the salvaged communication device from the crashed ship. After a few minutes, he pointed to a building far to... They're right. I've set it to emit a fake distress signal from that location. It should activate in 30 seconds. They waited. Right on time, half the Vex soldiers turned and marched toward the false signal. Now, Day whispered. Move quickly, but quietly. The group slipped past the remaining guards and reached the base of the tower. Inside, they found the entrance hall empty. The Vex had already searched the building and moved on. The main transmission room is at the top, June said, pointing to a map on the wall. They took the emergency stairs, climbing floor after floor. Day's legs burned from the effort, but the music in his headphones kept him going. Each beat matched his footsteps, driving him upward. When they reached the top floor, they found what they were looking for. The transmission room was a large circular chamber with a crystal dome ceiling. The walls were lined with control panels. Perfect, Tay said, examining the equipment. This system can broadcast across the entire planet and into space. The engineers immediately went to work, connecting the Vex communication device to the Moran systems. Day plugged his phone into the setup. How long until the mothership arrives? He asked June. June checked the status displays. Less than 30 minutes. And look, the screens showed hundreds of Moran being loaded onto Vex transport ships. They were being taken as prisoners or worse. We need to hurry, Day said. Suddenly alarms blared throughout the building. Red lights flashed on the control panels. They've detected us, Hannah said, her eyes wide with fear. Day could hear the heavy footsteps of Vex soldiers coming up the stairs. There was no escape. Keep working, he told the engineers. Get the system ready. I'll buy you some time. He looked around for a weapon and found a metal rod used for adjusting the crystal controls. It would have to do. Day, no. Hannah grabbed his arm. There are too many. Day gave her a small smile. Trust me, I'm from Earth, remember? We're good at impossible situations. He turned up his music to maximum volume, letting the powerful beat fill him with energy. Then he stepped out into the hallway, closing the door behind him. 6 Vex soldiers were coming up the stairs. They stopped when they saw him, their weapons raised. Hey, machines, Day called out. Let me show you how we do things on Earth. He charged at them, metal rod raised. The Vex fired, but Day was already moving sideways, sliding along the wall in a way they didn't expect. He smashed the rod into the nearest Vex, aiming for the joints where the armor was weakest. The fight was brief but fierce. Day couldn't match their strength, but he was faster and more unpredictable. He jumped, rolled, and struck from angles the Vex never anticipated. Their rigid programming couldn't adapt to his chaotic human movements, but he couldn't hold them forever. One of the energy beams grazed his arm, burning through his sleeve. Day fell back against the transmission room door, injured but still standing. Just then, the door opened. June pulled him inside. It's ready, he said. We've connected your music to their frequency. Day looked at the control panel. A button glowed, waiting to be pressed. What will happen? He asked. We don't know, Tay admitted. This has never been tried. Through the crystal dome above, they could see Vex ships surrounding the tower. There was no way out. Well, Day said, only one way to find out. He scrolled through his playlist and found his most chaotic song, a track that mixed heavy beats with unpredictable changes and raw emotional vocals. He pressed play, then hit the transmission button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire building shook as Dai's music blasted through the Moran communication system. The song didn't just play through speakers, it was converted into quantum signals that penetrated every Vex communication device. Outside, the Vex ships began to move erratically. Some stopped in midair, others flew in circles. Through the dome, Day could see Vex soldiers on the ground freezing or walking in random directions. It's working, Hannah shouted over the music. The unpredictable patterns are corrupting their systems. The song reached its chorus. A powerful emotional peak with thundering drums and defiant lyrics. The Moran covered their ears, overwhelmed by the intensity. But Day closed his eyes and let the music flow through him. On the control screens they watched as the approaching mothership halted its advance. Error messages flashed across the Vex communication channels. Their entire network is breaking down, June said in amazement. They can't coordinate their forces. The music played on, song after song, each one broadcasting human emotion and chaos into the ordered Vex systems. The longer it played, the more the invaders fell into disarray. Moran ships that had been hiding in the outer system began to return, finding the Vex fleet in disarray. They rescued the captured civilians and pushed back against the confused invaders. By sunset, the Vex mothership had retreated from the system. Without their perfect coordination, the Vex couldn't maintain their attack. Victory alarms sounded throughout the city. In the transmission room, Day finally unplugged his phone. The music stopped, but its effect remained. The Vex were gone. You did it, Hana said, touching his injured arm gently. You saved us. Day looked out at the damaged but still standing city. We did it together. You had the technology. I just had the music. Later, as the first stars appeared in the evening sky, the Moran High Council gathered in what remained of their meeting hall. Elder Sue approached Day, who sat with June and Hana. Human, she said formally. The people of Helios owe you a debt we can never repay. You have shown us something we had forgotten, that sometimes you must fight for peace. Day blushed, uncomfortable with the attention. I just did what anyone would do. No, June said. What you did was uniquely human. Your unpredictability, your emotions, your music, these are your species' greatest strengths. Elder Sue continued. We can send you home now, if that is your wish. Our quantum technology can return you to the exact moment you left Earth. Day thought about his life back home, the failed tests, the fighting parents, the loneliness. Then he looked at Hana, who was watching him with hope in her large eyes. Can I think about it? He asked. That night, Day stood on a balcony overlooking the damaged but still beautiful city. The 3 moons of Helios cast different colored lights across the crystal buildings. Hana joined him, holding something in her hands. I made this for you. It was a small device similar to his phone but made with Moran technology. It glowed softly in the moonlight. What is it? Day asked. A music creator, she explained. Our scientists studied your songs and built this. It can make new music based on your emotions. Day touched it, and a gentle melody began to play, matching his calm mood. Thank you, he said. No one has ever made something for me before. Hana moved closer. Will you go back to Earth? Day looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there was his home planet, but here on Helios, he had found something he never had on Earth, a place where he mattered. The Vex will return someday, he said. They'll adapt to our trick. You'll need new defenses. We need teachers, Hana said. Someone to show us how to think differently, how to feel. Day smiled. Then I guess I have a new job. He placed one earphone in his ear and offered the other to Hana. Together they listened to Earth music under alien stars. On a distant world, a teenage boy with headphones and fury had found his purpose, and a peaceful civilization had found something just as valuable, a new way of seeing the universe. They had prayed for a savior. Earth had sent them exactly what they needed.